The storm hit the kingdom of Valarian on a night that should have been peaceful. Thunder rolled like the roar of an ancient beast, and lightning tore jagged scars across the purple sky. In the highest tower of the palace, the royal guards burst into the princess's chamber only to find the windows wide open, the curtains thrashing violently, and the room completely empty. No footprints, no signs of struggle, just a single silver hairpin lying on the floor, glinting faintly in the dim lantern light. That was the moment the kingdom realized something unthinkable had happened. Princess Alara, the heart, hope, and future of Alarian, was gone, vanished without a trace, and her disappearance would change the destiny of every soul in the land, especially one young man who had never imagined he would be entwined with royalty. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of true love, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support truly keeps stories like these alive. The kingdom fell into grief as search parties scattered across mountains, forests, and rivers, calling her name until their voices grew hoarse. Ilara was known not only for her beauty but for her compassion, the kind of princess who walked barefoot in the gardens with the servants, who fed stray animals in the palace yard, who listened instead of spoke, who forgave instead of judged. And so the people's grief was genuine, raw, and terrifying, as if they had lost a guiding star. Months passed with no sign of her, and slowly the once bright kingdom dimmed into a shadow of despair. Rumors began to spread that she had been kidnapped, or cursed, or perhaps had run away to escape palace life. But no one knew the truth. No one except the trees of the whispering woods, and they kept their secrets well. In a small village far from the palace, nestled beside gentle hills and golden wheat fields, lived a young farmer named Aidan. He was ordinary in every way, or at least that's what he believed about himself. His life was simple, tending to the crops, caring for his mother, and dreaming quietly of a world that felt bigger than the boundaries of his village. Aidan had a heart that felt too big for his body, a mind that noticed things others didn't, and a kind of calm bravery he didn't even recognize as courage. He wasn't the type of hero the bards sang about, but he was the type of person who stayed longer to help fix a neighbor's fence, who worked late to bring his mother warm bread, who watched sunsets with a quiet sense of wonder. And sometimes, if the wind blew just right, he swore he heard a voice calling out faintly from the forest, but he always dismissed it as imagination. One late afternoon, while gathering herbs near the forest's edge, Aidan noticed a strange shimmer between the trees. It wasn't the sparkle of sunlight or the reflection of water. It was something softer, almost sad. Drawn by instinct, he stepped deeper into the woods, listening to the rustle of leaves like whispering secrets. After a short walk, he found her, a young woman in a torn pale blue dress, her hair tangled with wildflowers, her eyes filled with the kind of fear that clings to the heart. She was leaning weakly against an old oak tree, her breathing unsteady. Aidan froze, unsure whether she was real or another illusion of the woods. But when she looked up at him, her eyes blooming with relief and exhaustion, something inside him shifted immediately. A spark, a knowing, a connection he couldn't explain. He rushed to her, gently supporting her as she nearly fell into his arms. She didn't say who she was and he didn't ask. Something about her fragility, her silence, and the haunted look in her eyes warned him that she carried a story heavier than he could yet understand. He took her to his humble cottage, offering warmth, food, and a safe place to rest. His mother, though surprised, welcomed the girl with tender care. Days turned into weeks, and the girl slowly healed. She told them her name was Alara, a name so common that neither Aidan nor his mother suspected she was the missing princess the entire kingdom mourned. As Alara recovered, she began helping with simple chores, sweeping the floor, kneading dough, tending to the garden. She laughed softly when Aidan tripped over his own feet. She smiled shyly when he showed her how to plant tomatoes, and she sat under the stars at night whispering secret wishes when she thought no one was watching. Aidan found himself drawn to her more with each passing day, yet he held back, believing she came from a world far grander than his. Ilara, on the other hand, had never felt so human, so free, so safe. Every smile Aiden gave her stitched another piece of her broken heart back together. Weeks later, her memories returned, slowly, painfully, like fragments of a nightmare. She remembered a shadowy figure entering her chambers, a spell whispered in a voice colder than winter, a sensation of falling, and then the forest swallowing her whole. A sorcerer had abducted her, planning to force the kingdom into surrender, but she had escaped using a spell she didn't know she possessed. She hadn't realized the spell would drain nearly all her strength and render her memories blurry. But now, with her magic fading and the kingdom in danger, she knew she had to return. She wanted to tell Aiden the truth, but feared what might happen when he learned who she really was. Would he pull away, treat her like royalty and not the girl who laughed while baking bread, the girl who touched the wheat fields with awe, the girl who sat by the river skipping stones? Ilara had lost her identity once and didn't want to lose a second one, the version of herself she had become beside Aiden. When the royal guards eventually reached the village, following faint magical traces she had unknowingly left behind, everything changed. They bowed before her, calling her Your Highness, and the look on Aiden's face shattered her heart. He stepped back instinctively, as if distance was suddenly required between them. The difference in their worlds, once invisible, now stood like an unbreakable wall. She tried to speak to him, to hold his hands, but Aiden gently pulled away, believing he had no place in a palace or a destiny tied to magic and kingdoms. And though Alara returned home to a kingdom rejoicing, her heart stayed behind in that tiny cottage in the wheat fields. The palace felt colder than she remembered. The marble halls echoed too loudly. The weight of responsibility pressed on her shoulders like stone. At night, she would close her eyes and think of Aiden's smile, his rough hands, his kindness, the way he looked at her not as a princess but as a person. But duty demanded she stay silent. A looming threat still carried the sorcerer's dark shadows across the borders of Ilarion, and she had to protect her people. Meanwhile, Aiden tried to move on, but every morning when the sunlight hit the field just right, it reminded him of her soft laughter, her gentle presence, her courage hidden beneath delicacy. He prayed for her safety even though he believed she belonged to a world he could never reach. The kingdom soon discovered that the sorcerer was gathering power again. Ilara, refusing to hide behind guards, joined the royal mages in preparing for battle. She felt fear, but also newfound determination. She had survived the forest. She had found hope in an unexpected place. She had learned love in its purest form, and she carried that strength within her now. When the final confrontation arrived at the edge of the Whispering Woods, Ilara stood bravely at the front line, her magic glowing like a silver flame. The sorcerer mocked her, calling her weak, reminding her of how she had escaped only by accident. But he underestimated the fire inside her, a fire sparked by love, by her people, by the memory of a humble cottage where she had been cared for without expectation or crown. The battle was fierce, shaking the earth and setting the sky alight with magic. Ilara poured every ounce of strength into protecting the kingdom. Exhausted and trembling, she managed to cast a final protective spell that shattered the sorcerer's power, breaking his dark reign forever. But the spell drained her to the brink of collapse. She fell to her knees, breathless and fading, and the last thought in her mind was Aiden's face. Her guards rushed her back to the palace, and healers worked tirelessly through the night. Word spread quickly across the kingdom. The princess had saved them, but might not survive. When Aiden heard the news from a traveling merchant, something inside him snapped. Without thinking, he ran, through forests, across rivers, up the steep palace hill, driven by a force stronger than fear or reason. For the first time, he didn't care about social ranks, or royal walls, or what he thought he wasn't. The girl he loved was dying, and nothing else mattered. When he reached the palace gates, guards tried to stop him, but the queen herself, recognizing him from Alara's stories, allowed him inside. Aiden walked into the room where Alara lay pale and still, her magic flickering like a dying candle. He took her hand gently, whispering apologies for stepping away, for believing he wasn't enough, for letting fear decide his heart. And though she was unconscious, a tear slipped down her cheek, the first sign of hope the healers had seen in hours. Ilara slowly woke days later, her strength faint but returning. When she saw Aiden still sitting beside her bed, clutching her hand as if she were the most precious treasure he'd ever held, she knew that destiny, rank, and magic were nothing compared to the courage of a heart in love. The kingdom celebrated her recovery, but another celebration quietly bloomed in the palace garden the moment Alara told Aiden that she didn't want a prince. She wanted him, not a hero from stories, but the man who healed her without knowing her crown, who made her feel seen, loved, free. They walked together through the garden, no titles, no expectations, just two souls who had found each other against all odds. And that day, the kingdom witnessed something more powerful than magic, a princess choosing love not because it was expected, but because it was right. Aiden didn't become a prince immediately. He didn't need to. The kingdom accepted him because Alara's happiness was their happiness. And slowly, he learned the ways of the palace while teaching Alara how to stay grounded, humble, and human. Their love story became legend not because it was grand, but because it was real. A princess who was lost and found, a young man who believed he wasn't worthy, and a destiny written by kindness, courage, and the quiet power of two hearts choosing each other again and again. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support truly helps these fairy tale stories reach more people. Before the ending, please comment below. True love always finds its way. And so, the missing princess was no longer missing, neither from her kingdom nor from herself. She had found her way home, not just to the palace, but to the heart that had kept her safe when the world had turned dark. Aiden and Alara spent their days shaping a kingdom built on compassion, unity, and love. And on quiet nights, they would return to the little village, stand in the wheat fields where their story began, and whisper to the gentle wind that had once carried their destinies together. And that is where their fairy tale love story truly lived, not in the palace walls, but in the hearts of those who believed in kindness, second chances, and the magic of choosing love.